Welcome to this presentation about healing relationships, schema therapy for couples, the modular approach. I'm Dr. Eckhard Roediger. I'm the director of the Frankfurt Schema Therapy Institute in Germany, past president of the ISST, and now its honorary member. And I'm very glad that I'm able to show you our approach. And it starts with this slide showing you the mode model and some attunements that we made to make it more applicable on couples therapy. We all agree that frustrated core needs lead to schemas. And when a schema is triggered today, we experience basic emotions in a spectrum between more vulnerable, anxious, sad feelings or activated, annoyed, angry feelings. And we put that in the framework according to the DSM-5 dimensional model, that there's a more tendency to internalize towards the blue side and to externalize towards the red side. And the second player backstage inside the clients are the core beliefs resulting from internalized childhood messages. And these two components, these two roots come together, and the visible presentation on front stage the clients show to us are the displayed modes, the coping modes. And they are composed by the visible behavior itself, but also by the present voices in the head, the activated thoughts, and the social emotions resulting from these beliefs, because nobody's born with guilt or shame or hatred or content. This is resulting from a basic emotion together with certain beliefs directing these emotions into a behavior. And this behavior is displayed in the polarity between more internalizing behavior, we call the blue side, submitting or surrendering. On the other side, it's more taking a dominant or overcompensatory role. That's the red side. And in between, there is the option to avoid if the world is not responsive to what you want to do. And we start therapy on the front stage presentation, but then we try to move backstage, because the function of the healthy adult mode is to perceive and regulate the basic emotions, and on the other side, appraise and eventually impeach toxic or maladaptive creative voices. The resulting behavior the adult mode is executing is again in the spectrum between more internalizing behavior, blue leg, which is not submitting but cooperation. It's the same trajectory. And on the other side, maybe not be dominant, but show sufficiently assertive behavior, red leg. Again, this is a trajectory. And in between is the option not to detach in an emotionally disconnected way, but to diffuse, to keep distance to something happening around you in a more accepting, more centered way. So this is our basic model. And if we take the next step, you can watch this. There's a tutorial on our website, schema-therapy-roediger.org. If you go to resources, videos, tutorials, you find a 30-minute explanation based on the still face experiment tape by Edward Tronick, where our simplified two legs model is built on. And this is the two legs model in a nutshell. We focused on three irreducible core needs. And the most basic core need is the sense or need for safety and stability. We just want to survive. We want to feel better safe than sorry. And we might withdraw from the world to protect ourselves and hide in our shell. But this is not the way human beings are meant, because we are social beings. We need other people. Otherwise, we feel depressed, lonely, sad. And if we try to connect with the world, we can do it in two ways. One way is what we call the blue leg, and this is why it's colored in blue. This is following the attachment need. And the attachment need allows us to connect with people in a loving way. We are willing to trust. We are more other-directed, and this is our pro-social side. We give space to other people. We think in terms of we, our family, our friends, our sports team, good workplace colleagues. This is where we are glued together in a social group based on the attachment need. But if we are too much on attachment, the risk is that we might lose our sense of self. And this is why we need to balance the attachment need with the assertiveness need. And this is colored in red because this is part of the red leg trajectory. And there's the need for assertiveness, which is connected with the sympathetic activation in our body, empowering us with anger feelings. And they help us to develop autonomy and a sense of control. We are more self-centered, and this might end up that we give a little bit too little space for others because we take too much space. And then we are too much in the me. And the downside or the risk is that other people might not like us and withdraw from us. And then we end up lonely. So again, on both sides of between these polarities, we are kind of having a trap. But the best thing we can do is to balance between these poles in a state that Dan Siegel coined as a we state. We merge the me and we, or we balance the me and the we side in a flexible way. And this is what the healthy adult mode should do, making us feel contented, and then we end up as the contented or maybe happy child. So that's the purpose of our life. And we use this two legs model because we get balanced in the middle, standing on both legs. Because on the other side, if the attachment need is frustrated, in the primary step, we develop a sense of fear or sadness. This is what you see in the still face tape. The child reacts with a certain fear when the mother detaches. And this fear drives us more into submissive behavior, which might be supported by self-critical beliefs, who together with the sadness or the anxiousness drive us into more cooperative or submissive behavior. And on the other side, if our assertiveness need is not met, we develop sense of annoyance, disgust, anger, and this is driving us into more dominant fighting-like behavior, which might be supported by critic beliefs about others, because the voices in the head can also address themselves to others and tell them they deserve punishment, this is not okay, and then together with the energy from the sympathetic nervous system, we are activated enough, and the direction is to take a very firm stance towards other people. And if both is not working, we go back to the safety, stability need and withdraw in a more passive or more active way. So we end up with these two trajectories being more on the assertive, angry, dominant side, or more on the vulnerable, anxious, sad side, and being willing to submit. This is the simplified model, and this is what we build our work on when we work with couples. Because when your couples enter your therapy room, they are in a mode cycle, and the mode cycle is built up by the coping modes. But the coping modes are driven usually by one-sided emotions, and it's not covering the full emotional spectrum. So the goal of therapy is to bypass the coping modes and then access the full need spectrum backstage. And I will show you in the next slide how we do that. When a couple comes to therapy, many couples start with a dominant or submissive cycle. And in the early stages of their relationship, this might have worked well because we usually feel kind of attracted by people who are kind of complementary to us. And this cycle might remain stable through all the life. Then they will never show up in therapy, and that's okay, even if our value system might not support this complementarity. And it depends on the cultural background. In some cultures, there are still quite polar role models, and people get along with it. The problem starts if the more submissive person feels unhappy in the relationship and starts withdrawing, maybe induced by an individual therapy. And because when the person who was primarily submissive starts to withdraw or escape, usually the dominant person tries to push this person back into the cycle because they want to maintain the system. They want the partner to keep the implicit or explicit contract. So if the partner detaches, the other person increases their dominance, but this leads to unsatisfying states with a primary submissive partner, and they will escape more, and then they will be more pushed, and then the cycle is escalating. And according to Gottman's data, 80% are separated within 4 or 5 years with these unstable cycles. But this is the most prevalent cycle couples come to therapy with. There are also dominant states, but they don't last long. They're fragile because nobody can fight for weeks. So sooner or later, one of the partners will go back to a submissive or at least a detached position. And then we are back in the second cycle. There are some couples coming to therapy with a kind of a blunted relationship where they are both in avoidance, there is stagnation, maybe an empty nest syndrome situation looks like that. And then we have to figure out how much willingness to attach is still available within this couple. The goal of therapy is to guide both partners into an adult-adult cycle, offering most flexibility and the option to grow. The punchline on this slide is the main goal of therapy, because when a couple comes to therapy, they usually feel right, and we use this smartphone metaphor to show the couple where they're at. And we show Tom is one partner in our couple. We show Tom the display side, and we show Betty the camera side. And then we ask them, what do you see? And Tom will say, well, I see the display. And then I ask Betty, are you sure? Do you see a display? No, you see cameras. So Tom is messing with you. He's trying to fool you because there is no display. You see the cameras. And this misunderstanding, this trapped state in the personal subjective view is what we call the subjectivity trap. This is based on the function, the setup of our brain networks, because we are overly sure that we see things in the right way. And this is the starting point of all misunderstanding and of all fighting. And this is that the purpose of therapy is to show the couple it's not the content that you see and you're fighting for. It's the pattern of misunderstanding of falling apart. And this is the mode cycle. And this is our common enemy. So the goal of therapy finally is to open the couple up that there are two sides of the smartphone. They agree to disagree. And this agreement that they are not on the same page might be the starting point that they develop a sense of openness, of curiosity, of willingness to broaden their scope and see the other side. And unless they see both sides, they will not be able to find good solutions and good compromises. So this is the overall goal of our therapy, to get people away from their righteous, self-centered perspective, I'm right, and so you must be wrong and you must be fixed. This is the expectation of most couples. And we'll tell them, no, you are both trapped on your smartphone side. And the best thing you can do is to open up for something more than you already know. And this is positive psychology. This is the broad and built theory of Barbara Fredrickson that we apply on the couples. How do we do that? We start with a maladaptive cycle, and we show that backstage, Betty, which is the other partner in our couple, feels anger. She goes to a dominant, controlling coping. This is too much for Tom. He feels overwhelmed, so he detaches, and this is the cycle. But the problem is that they are both trapped on one emotional side, and we need to connect with the blocked emotion and make it available for rebalancing. So in the therapy, the red Bettys need to connect more with the vulnerable side and show the vulnerable side to Tom. Then they are standing on both legs. And the anxious Toms are trapped on the vulnerable side, on the blue leg, and they need to add or connect with some constructive anger, connecting them with their assertiveness side, and step up front to Betty and tell them, I don't want to be treated this way. I deserve something better. Nobody talks with me like you do. And then this can be balanced with something they offer from the blue side. And then they get back into balance as well. This is our goal. Bypass front stage modes, connect with both legs, accept that there's a dominant emotion backstage, but we need to add the blocked emotion. And then the clients are on both legs and they can go for the best solutions. The process of therapy, and this is a slide covering the whole process of therapy, starts with the schemas. And we know, we mentioned that already, that childhood experiences lead to early maladaptive schemas and to an automatic way to cope with these schemas. And the combination of schema and schema coping is part of the organism. And the schema activation, schema coping shows up in the internal backstage mode activations with child modes, emotions, and critic modes, voices in the head. This is how this becomes present in the therapy room. When a client now is triggered by the behavior of the partner, unconsciously the schemas get activated and distort their perception and bring up the modes. So in one step in therapy, we have to figure out how much schema activation is involved, how much adult mode and skills to diffuse from this activated state is already available, or we might need to add more individual work. And I will show you in the next slide how we organize the whole therapy. So this is the starting part. We have to take into account that clients are not fully in the present moment, but driven by schemas. And these schema-driven states lead to automatic coping modes, and they maintain the maladaptive system. This is what Jeffrey Young calls the life trap. In the therapy room, the first thing we do is we stop the schema activation, we stop the mode cycle, we go into a standing up position with both partners, and then we look down on the activated modes on one side, Tom's modes and Betty's modes, and the backstage emotions. And then we get a picture of the one-sided reaction. And this is what we call mode awareness. We watch the couple like through a camera from the standing up position, and then we just describe what we see. Everything is okay. We accept all mode activations, but we diffuse and go into observer mode. And for those of you who know acceptance and commitment therapy, this is ACT processes. And this is written in italics. So all the italic words are taken from the ACT model. Once we are in mode awareness and we share the same view from the standing up position on the modes, we can access the backstage and go for the missing emotion. And this is something that we activate by getting a picture. We take the camera and then we look what emotions are missing. And then we, with imagery techniques and in the couples track, I will give a demonstration with a couple how we access and activate the missing emotions. But this is done on an experiential level. This comes from the body again, because we use existing positive schemas, existing resources like compassion for another person to open up the Bettys from their angry side, show a more compassionate side to themselves, their vulnerable side, and to Tom. So this is not ACT, this is schema therapy. We use these experiential techniques to really activate emotions in the therapy room and make the reconnection happen. And then we connect with our values. We ask the couple, where do you want to go? Give us an image of the future. And then they can make the choice and reconnect in a more functional, more committed way and a more connected way. And this stabilizes new circuits in the brain and the positive schemas. And then the couple has to practice at home. We ask the couple to record all the sessions so they are able to replay the schema activation in the therapy room at home, so they understand and can recognize and identify the schema activation part in their relationship. That's the first part of the session, that we do image work to connect with the schema background. And then we activate the resources in the therapy room and make the couple, at least in 6 modules, we make them reconnect in the session. And they can replay this shift from the beginning of the session, being on the red leg, then shifting to the blue leg and reconnecting on the blue leg. During the session, if they listen to the recording at home, this will reactivate the feelings inside the body at home on their couch. And then they realize it's not about the therapist, it's not about the therapy room, it's about us changing from the red leg to the blue leg. Because we are too much in autonomy, too much self-centered, we destroy the connection with other people on the red leg, and we build up connection on the blue leg. That's the simple punchline of this model. We move between imagery states in therapy and observer stance standing up. We avoid face-to-face contact. We avoid that the couple share all their narratives, their stories, their conceptual self in the therapy room. We stop very early, and then we stand up, go into the observer position, and then we figure out what is the trigger. We try to connect with the imagery state. So after we put the modes in the case conceptualization on the chairs, we're going to sit down. Then we do image work to connect with the schemas, feel the sense of activation, and then we go back to the standing up position, put it in the full picture, go into a contextual view, add the missing emotion, add a time perspective. Where do you want to go? What is the purpose of your relationship? And then we go for the best solution. So we commute between experiential states in imagery and observer stance, getting the full picture, zooming into the problem, zooming into the schema activation, but then raising again, go to observer stance and get the big picture in the wide angle view. And this now finally are the modules, and I will go through the modules with you to give you a sense of the whole thing. There are 3 parts. The first part, this is the education part, where we introduce the model in the first session, or we take a little history, but not too much. I already mentioned, we don't want to buy too much into the conceptual self stories. We need some basic facts, maybe the atmosphere in childhood, how many siblings they had, are there any problems in school, what is the job development, what are they actually working, do they have kids now, what is their life conditions now? But not too much details. It's more like a genogram. It's more the structure, the socio-demographic data, the facts, not the stories. And then in the next session, or between the first session and the second session, we ask the couple to watch this still face tutorial on the website, so they have an idea about the model. In the next session, we connect this basic model, the simple 2 legs model, with their cycles. And then it becomes individualized. And we have a 1-page case conceptualization, the mode cycle clash card, that shows all the coping modes, the activated driving emotion, the blocked emotions, the schema background. And then we proceed to the needs they actually have and go for a balanced solution through that paper. But it's very small. It's just 1 page. Then the next step is to stop the mode cycles, because this is bloodshed. It's just a loss of substance, emotional substance connecting them. They destroy relationships with struggling. They need to stop it without any ifs and buts. Go to 2 separate rooms, remain standing up, putting their 2 chairs for their behavior and Betty's, or Tom's and Betty's behavior, and then connect with the model in the timeout to get into this wide angle view, raise above, diffuse from the activated emotions, get the full picture, try to rebalance, get the purpose of the relationship. And when they come back from timeout, they just treat the other person in a respectful way, with moderate emotional distance, like friendly strangers, but friendly, respectful, cooperative, going for organizing their life, but no arguments. And based on this skills to limit the dysfunctional cycles, we tried to connect them with their willingness to reconnect, to attach to the other person on the blue leg by the best day. Where do you want to go? What is the vision of your relationship? What are your values? How do you want your life to be in a month, in a year? If there are small kids, maybe in 5 years, when there's more space for the couple to spend time together without the kids and maintain their intimate relationship. But these images help to develop a sense of connection in the session. And then they usually hug at the end. If this is possible, if they reconnect in the session, there is some healthy adult mode available. And then we're able to take the straight path to the conjoint imagery work right down here, connect with the schemas in imagery. We do the float back. that people also do in individual work. We connect with the schema building scene in childhood. And then the partner, the observing partner realizes this is not me Betty is fighting with. It's her father, her mother, bullies in school. And she's not in the present moment when she is in these activated emotional states. And then Tom might say, I don't want to be like your father. I don't want to be the bullies in school. I'm here to be with you, to have a good life. And then he might help Betty to get out of this activation state. And Betty, on her side, realizes the pain I feel is not coming from Tom. Tom pushes the button, but it's inside of me. The old images make the feelings. And then they can raise above the schemas. That's a very important contribution from the schema model, to understand the nature of the present moment emotional activation. And then they can reconnect, and Tom will care for Betty, and then we look, what consequences does that have for your present life to meet more on an adult level? Sometimes it needs a certain training to talk from the healthy adult side, and some red dominant clients are not aware how pushy, manipulative they are, how over-controlling their behavior appears. And then the recordings help them to hear their own voice and realize, okay, this is how I sound to others. And then we might practice talking more warmer, more giving more space, more violent free communication like. Yeah. And this all leads to connection dialogue, because once they are both open for the other side of the smartphone, they understand more of the schema background, they are willing to go for good solutions. And in the connection dialogue, they actually turn the smartphone, because they have to repeat the messages of the other person before they comment their own statements and put it on the table as well. And the repetition makes the brains more similar, because if I repeat a message, it becomes part of my knowledge in my brain, part of my brain networks. And so step by step, the brains get a little bit more closer, more similar. And this is probably the neurobiological basement of a better understanding, because you know what your partner really thinks, feels, and wants. And then it's much easier to build the bridge between the two river benches and try to connect with a good solution. So that's the fast cut. And the homework toolbox, by the way, is just meant that after every session, the clients know what they have to practice. We make these homework a part of the process, because this shows if the couple is really willing to work. If not, this limits the therapy, and we have to end it on a lower level of functioning. We have intermediate modules to access the blocked leg. So we do individual therapy. We work on 20 minutes with one partner while the other's observing. And we do imagery work. We do chair dialogue in these sessions. And if it's not enough, we offer individual sessions to work on the schemas. So there's a lot of flexibility by adding modules for the externalizers, 5 and 6. And we have modules for the internalizers to support assertive behavior and to deal with critic voices holding them back. So the combination of conjoint sessions, individual work in the presence of the partner, where they both reconnect at the end, and they usually hug as well, with all the intermediate modules, and the option to have individual sessions enable us to work with personality disordered people. And this is what Leo Hotstowers in Amsterdam, under the guidance of Arnold Arns, revealed using 12 individual session, 12 couple session with this model. And they had amazing outcomes. This is in press right now. So it actually works. If you want to know more about this way of working, the couples book we published 10 years ago give you the basement, but it's not about the modules. If you want to go to the modules, you need to go to this website, Schema Therapy Roediger. You see videos with the tutorials about the model. You see the modules themselves on the couples page, and you see training options. And we just completed a new book about the module system. If I'm me, we just look for a publisher, and then you will be able to read it in the up-to-date version. So this is what I showed you today. It was very fast. I had to keep the time frame of 30 minutes, and I hope you enjoyed it. and have much fun with all the other presentations on the World Schema Therapy Day. Maybe see you one day in the trainings. Bye-bye.